Well. After the Adrian Newey news yesterday, I thought it was going to be a little bit quiet until we got to the Miami Grand Prix. But no, this morning, Nico Hulkenberg, or Haas, have announced Nico Hulkenberg is leaving the team at the end of the season. Initially, when I first saw this, I thought, what? Why? Why are you letting him go? You're the better of your two drivers at the moment. He's had a great resurgence since he's returned from being a reserve driver and being on the sidelines. Like, why are you doing this? Don't do this, Haas. And it was very quickly followed, this announcement, by another one. But he's joining Stake F1, the soon-to-become Audi F1 team. And then it made sense. Hulkenberg has gone of his own accord to a team that, well, you would think would be on the up, more on the upward trajectory than what Haas will be in the next few years. So for him, it makes sense. It's a German team also. So yeah, I assume Audi wanted a German driver. It always helps to have kind of a homegrown driver. If you can, I mean, look at Alpine, they've got two French drivers. You had Mercedes at one point, had Nico Rosberg as well. So yeah, there's always that pull of having a homegrown driver from whichever country you're initially from and originate from as a company. So yeah, it makes sense. That totally makes sense. Now, who's going to take up that second Haas seat? Well, I think it's pretty much a done deal that Ollie Bearman is going to step into that seat. We know that Haas have a very close relationship with Ferrari. Ollie Bearman is not only Ferrari's reserve driver, but he's also their Haas's reserve driver as well. Haas, if you don't know and aren't familiar with their relationship with Ferrari, they've been using their engines for quite some time, and they've also been kind of getting their hand-me-downs in parts as well. You can kind of think of Haas as, while they're their own team, they're also kind of like the AlphaTauri, the V-Carb team of how that relationship is to Red Bull. Not quite as close in regards to like driver movements and stuff. They're still very independent, but how the working relationship kind of is, that's a comparison if you're struggling to figure out how they are related. And yeah, Ollie Bearman, well, why Ollie Bearman? Well, we've already seen him this year in the Ferrari seat, stepping in for Carlos Sainz when he had his appendix surgery at Saudi. What a performance that was, considering the nature of the circuit and, of course, only having one practice session to get up to speed with the car. And then this year, there are 6 rookie tests available. So this is when, of course, a driver will hand over at least one session as well. At least only one session, but there are 6 available throughout the year where drivers will hand over their car to a rookie to give them an opportunity in a practice session. Well, there are 6 available this year, and Ollie Bearman is booked in for all 6 at Haas. That shows a level of trust in the driver and just indicates that, well, you're geeing him up for a seat next year. So if Hulkenberg didn't move now, or Magnussen didn't announce he was moving, I think one of them at least would have been moved aside at the end of the season to allow Bearman to come in. It makes sense because Bearman is very young as well. He's only 18 years old at this moment in time. So he could spend 2 to 3 years in that Haas seat into a new regulation set where Lewis Hamilton, of course, in his 40s now. Of course, he has intention to race on longer, but that's not always necessarily is your decision. Ferrari may look to move Lewis Hamilton on after only a couple of years, and that then allows Ollie Bearman, obviously, on the basis that he does perform well, to step into that seat. I'm sure he will. He's a very good talent, and I think, yeah, if he continues the form that we saw in Saudi, or showcases that talent we saw in Saudi, I think, yeah, he's a shoo-in for a future seat at Ferrari. And he's young as well. Even if Lewis does go on for, say, 4 years, he will only still be 22 years old. Like, that's nothing. He's still got his whole F1 career ahead of him. So really exciting news, but I think this is just the beginning of the driver transfer market this season. Before this season, there were 12 drivers out of contract at the end of the year. I think that's now dwindled down to 10 because Lewis Hamilton has announced his move. We've got Hulkenberg announced that he's moved. We know Carlos Sainz is already on the way out. We don't know where. We'll talk about him in just a second. So, yeah, I think there's still going to be more. I still think Haas potentially unless Magnussen bucks his ideas up, I think they could look for an all-new driver lineup next year. Because Stake F1, let's move on to that, or Audi. So they've clearly made their indications clear that I think they want a whole new driver lineup. They've brought in Nico Hulkenberg, so that at least means that one of either Zhou or we've got Valtteri Bottas out of a seat next by the end of this season. So one of those two is going to leave. If I had to put my money on it, I think Valtteri Bottas will be the one to go. I think just because he's the elder statesman, he still is performing quite well. He had a good race weekend at Shanghai. But Zhou brings in a lot of money. It's got that Chinese market. You saw that love and adoration that he got from China at the weekend. And yeah, I think if they can't get their man, Carlos Sainz, because I think it's quite well documented, they've made him a very lucrative offer. Helmut Marko came out in the public and said that, yeah, we've had discussions with Sainz, but he's got a very, very big cash deal or offer from Audi that they can't compete with. So Audi are, of course, one of the biggest car manufacturers in the world. They're very well known in motorsport, so they're not short of a few bob. And of course, the driver salaries as well, because normally the driver salaries are at least two of the top three earners or wages in F1. Their salaries don't come under the cost cap, so in effect they could pay whatever they want to their drivers. So yeah, Carlos Sainz is going to be pushed by Audi, I imagine, to make a decision on this deal, because they want to secure their driver lineup. There'll of course be Valtteri Bottas and Zhou, looking and pressuring them to get a contract signed for next year. So yeah, lots of movements. I think this is going to start lots of movement up and down the grid. Of course, we've then still got another topic for another day, but Logan Sargent is highly rumoured that Miami is his last race of the season, and there's potential that Kimi Antonelli will be stepping up into that seat as well. So yeah, lots happening at the moment, but exciting times, really exciting times. But Carlos Sainz, lastly, should he go to Audi? I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure he should. I still think he's a driver that deserves a top seat, but the problem is that those top seats are very limited. Does he go to Mercedes? The only saving grace for him may be Carlos Sainz, but is Kimi Antonelli getting into the Williams seat early. But then it depends on how long is that deal with Williams going to last for. Is it just for half a season, so that he gets into an F1 car earlier and gets the F1 experience earlier and is more primed for the seat in 2025? Or do Mercedes keep Antonelli in the Williams seat for next year for a new regulation set in 2026 and keep Carlos Sainz on for just a single year deal? I don't know. There's lots of variables here, and it's really intriguing to see how it's going to play out. Carlos Sainz does have the offer with Audi, but they're not going to hang around forever. They're going to be wanting to work with those drivers and start their project. But as we said, drivers ideally want to be in a position of their team for 2026 in 2025, a year prior to that, probably on 2-year contracts, so that they can see how their team does in a brand new regulation set in the start of 2026. Because if your team is like really struggling by the end of 2026, you don't want to be stuck at that team on a 5-year deal. You want to be able to get out and potentially move to another team that is more fighting up the front. So really interesting times. Didn't expect to wake up to this news today, but I think it's a great move for Nico Hulkenberg, because Haas, while they are good, they still don't quite have the investment to operate, I think, at the top of the cost cap budget. So I think they're still going to be kind of towards the back of the grid, whereas you think Audi, I mean, they're going to definitely have, I mean, every team does, but Audi is definitely going to be coming in operating at the top of that cost cap budget. They've got history in motorsport, and yeah, I'm sure they'll definitely have ambitions of being at the front of the grid and fighting for it. And with a brand new regulation set, we know how things can just flip on their head very quickly. Just because you've been dominating for the previous years doesn't mean that you're going to dominate when regulations change. Just look at Mercedes. Just look at Mercedes and look at Red Bull prior to that with the Vettel era as well, and other teams throughout history. So yeah, intriguing times, and this is definitely, I think, not going to be the last of the silly season or last of the driver moves that happen throughout the year. I didn't think it would be happening this early, but yeah, I still think a lot will happen in the summer break. But yeah, stay tuned, guys. Stay tuned. But let me know what you think of Hulk's move to stake F1. What do you think? Ollie Bearman is a great replacement for him in the Haas. Do you think Haas will even keep Magnussen at the end of the year? And will Carlos Sainz go to Audi alongside Nico Hulkenberg? So many things to discuss. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'll see you for the next one. Bye.